you're an artist, but you don't know if you want to pursue this as your full-time career, as your career, or if you just want to do this as a hobby. If that's you, make sure to watch this video because I'm about to give you really valuable advice that I wish I had when I just started off.
Welcome to my channel. If you are into art, healing, or becoming the best version of you, you definitely want to hit that subscribe button.
Hey guys, we have ourselves another art video today. So if you're not an art enthusiast or an artist, do not watch. This video does not concern you. Okay, but for real, we are gonna get real today, guys. Right after I show you guys this denim that I customized for myself in 2020 just because I felt like it, and you know, COVID quarantine, so I was being creative on top of the creative stuff that I usually do anyway. We don't need these glasses because they don't have prescription and I just got them because I need to. Anyway, for the purposes of this video, I do not need to see, you don't need to see me either, you can just listen to what I'm gonna say because this will be valuable. Here are the things I wish that I knew when I first started my art career. It is a lonely path, guys. So if you haven't gotten your partying days out of the way, or what I like to call pitbull days, because I used to own a pitbull and she needed to run a lot. She had so much energy, and only after running a ton, she was able to actually chill with me and hang out. So if you haven't had enough of that, then maybe going full-time and really digging into an art career might not be the right thing for you yet. It is often said that business owners are very lonely. You spend a lot of time by yourself because you're creating this whole new system. You're creating a world, you're creating an empire, however small or big that is, right? But artists are even more lonely than the average entrepreneur because if you are a business and you're selling products, you're not the one also making the products usually. You have a factory, you have other people, you're maybe sourcing items. As an artist, you're also the one creating the items and you're dealing with all this other nonsense as well, which I will mention as, you know, other points later. But essentially, it is very, very lonely. And when I started off, I didn't really understand that. I luckily had a lot of fun. I had really tried a lot of things in my life. I had traveled a lot. I mean, I do intend to continue to do traveling. And of course, it's not like I don't socialize anymore. But once I really dug in and decided, okay, this is for me, this is, you know, the career I want to pursue, it limited the amount of time I spent on all of the other things. You do have to realize that there's a lot of work that goes into pursuing an art career, a lot. It's all dependent on you. So the more amount of time you are spending on your craft, aka alone, the more you will notice that you will progress in your career. It's almost like the lonelier you are, the more you progress. But that's not completely true, of course, because I will be mentioning in another point later on the other aspect of that. But just remember, most of the time, I mean, all the time for me, when I'm creating, I am by myself. So I didn't really fully comprehend that. I don't actually have an issue with that, but I can say that in my younger days, I wouldn't have been ready for that. The idea of not being distracted and being around friends and being around people would have been very scary for me. So you want to sort of navigate where you are on that. Number 2, and this one took me a while to accept and embrace, but ultimately, if you are pursuing an art career, what you are doing is you're building a business. And this term has been awkward and weird for me to use because it felt so loaded and scary. I didn't go to school for business. I didn't even know what it meant. It just felt like a lot of numbers and paperwork and legal stuff, and I hate all those things. So it's taken me a long time to embrace it. And you don't have to know anything about it in the very beginning. I think the most important thing is to create a body of work and really understand yourself and, you know, familiarize yourself with your craft and your story and blah, 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 right? But ultimately, I do think it's useful to know when you're going into it that eventually the same things that apply to a business is gonna eventually apply to you. So if you are feeling lost, you can actually watch other business channels here on YouTube to get advice. And this is stuff that you're not necessarily taught in art school, I think. Like, I know this would have been helpful for me when I felt lost, if I knew that I didn't have to look for artists only for advice. I could have actually looked toward entrepreneurs. So I think that's really useful, and don't get overwhelmed or scared by this term. I would have been in the beginning, but if you're not ready for it, it's okay. Just keep it at the back of your mind. When you're ready, you're gonna know that you can now read information on small businesses and it's gonna apply to you. Okay, so number 3, you need a vision. You need to have a general idea of what kind of artist you want to be. When I was starting off, I had no clue. I knew I was a creative, and I didn't know exactly what that meant. I didn't know if I wanted to be an animator, a graphic designer, an illustrator, a painter, which felt like impossible. So what I did was I actually called up the different people that I respected in the various fields that I mentioned, and I almost like interviewed them over coffee. I asked them what were the pros and cons of their industry, and I tried to figure out if that worked with my personality and with what I felt like seemed right for me. I also tried out multiple different mediums. I actually taught myself illustration. I learned all these different brushes and tools on my tablet, and I remember making free punk rock band posters for my friends back in the day, just to see if I vibed with it. And, you know, by doing things like that, even if it's for free in the beginning, when you're figuring out if you actually suit pursuing, you know, being an artist full time as a career, right? Artist actually can mean multiple different things. So by trying different ways to approach your craft, you can actually figure out what suits your personality. So I highly recommend that. This helps you develop your vision, and that's very important, because ultimately, the clearer your vision, the clearer your path. So before you really have a clear vision, your path is gonna look a little bit confusing. You might be trying different things, and that is actually all part of the journey. Like, have a vision for what you're building. But in order to have a vision, you should probably try different things. So hopefully that's very useful. I think that would have been very useful for me in the beginning. On that note, I should have probably said this first before the point I just made, but I already mentioned it. It's not a straight road. That is number 4. It's not a straight path. And it's okay for you to try different things along the road, on the sides of the road, in order for you to figure out what your vision is. I already said this before, but this is an actual point that would have been so useful for me as reassurance back in the day, because, and still today, actually, I have to remind myself, like, this is okay. This is all part of life. It's okay to try different things. When you don't know what you're trying to do, you don't have a clear vision, that's when you want to sort of try things out in order for you to clarify that vision. And your vision will get clearer and clearer along the way, but we're always changing and evolving, so that's perfectly fine. You don't need to constantly be going in a straight path. So my direction has changed several times in terms of how I want to approach what I'm building, and that's perfectly okay. It's very natural. It's just growth, guys. It's just being human. The 5th and final thing I'll mention today that I wish that I knew in the very beginning of my artist career is that this is a long game. So you're gonna have to be very patient. Don't expect things to come instantly. In fact, you are better off thinking about your career in chapters rather than, I need everything right now. I need to have the collection right now. I need to know all the right people right now. I need to make sales right now. No, there's layers to it. You probably want to focus on creating a body of work. Focus on your craft in the very beginning, which I will make a separate video on in the future. when I feel like it. That should be your first step before you even actually consider the things that I've mentioned in this video. But anyway, and then networking, people, getting involved in the community, that's sort of a second step. You know, you can go back and forth between the steps as well. And then eventually sales and marketing could also come like throughout the entire process nowadays, because social media is such a prominent aspect of whatever you're doing these days. Because it is a long game, you don't want to overprice your work. Just as an example, you want to make sure that you're patiently building firmer roots into the ground so that the business that you're building is steady, and just take your time. It is better to go slow and steady than fast and then collapse. However, you will be facing failures and denials along the way, and that's normal. But there's just so much that goes into learning how to make this a full-time career that you might as well just understand right now in the get-go that there's a lot that goes into it, and it's gonna take time, so you don't overwhelm yourself and freak out because you don't know everything you need to know right now. Also, you're never gonna know everything. Things are always changing. There's always gonna be more apps that you gotta learn about. There's always gonna be more collections that you need to create. You're always gonna have more ideas, and that's just part of being an artist and why it's so freaking awesome. You're never gonna be bored. It's always gonna be a challenge, and that's why it's beautiful, that's why it's awesome, and that's why it suits you. If everything I said was like, okay, I can handle it, this is the path for you. If it felt very overwhelming and you don't know if you're ready, that's okay. I wasn't always ready. I wasn't ready actually for most of my life at all. When you are ready, the stuff that I'm saying is not gonna feel too scary, or if it does feel scary and you still feel like you want to pursue it, you know this is the right path. Don't let fear stop you. Fear is often an indication that this is the path for you. It's actually a green light rather than a red light. I hope these points were useful for you, and if it was, please let me know. I've been trying to figure out my content here on YouTube. I want to make sure that I give out useful content for artists that are starting off their career, but I also want to make sure that I'm giving you guys an accurate representation of what it's really like to pursue art. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of craziness and psychological ups and downs. So definitely let me know if you're enjoying my videos, and subscribe to my channel if you are. You can also see more of my art on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok. I'm on everything, although I'm mostly really active on Instagram. Yeah, so anyway, I love you guys, and until next time, ciao. But for real, if you actually made it till the end, I love you. I love you. I just dropped a pen.